Hello everyone, my name is Amir Qureshi, and I want to welcome you to Unfolding Destiny, where we teach you how to build your life within the context of your true identity. Today's topic has to deal with the psychology of frames and social dominance hierarchies. So, what exactly is a frame and why is it important? Why is it relevant to you, your life, and why should you pay attention to it? So, in social context, frames are everything. They're so important, and I'll explain why. So, what is a frame? A frame is how you present yourself to different people in different social contexts. So, two different social contexts can have two different frames. Depends on who you're talking to, what the intent and purpose is behind the interaction. And this can get pretty, complicated, and it can also get pretty dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about social contract theory and John Locke, the state of nature, that kind of thing. Let's kind of take you out of civilization for a second, and let's take you to a world where there are no rules. When there's no laws, there's no governing bodies, there's no government. So in that situation, what happens when there's still people around? In that case, there's still going to be social hierarchies. When one person meets another person for the very first time, what they're doing is they're trying to examine their environment for social cues. They're trying to see, all right, who is this person? Why are they here? And where's the exit sign? Because you don't know what could be around the corner, right? Remember, we're in the state of nature here. There are no laws. But I guess interactions still need to happen, okay? You still need to communicate with people. So what do? You size up this person. You look at them right in the eye and you try to see what they're all about. Now, in a situation such as that, usually what happens is there's one person that rises above the top. One person has a bigger, more dominant social frame than the other person does. That's typically how it plays out, okay? So when you meet someone for the first time, you have to establish instantly where you fall within that spectrum, within that range of frames. Are you people equal? Does this person have a leg up above you, or are you above them? Very important stuff, because this will dictate and influence how that social interaction comes to be and how it plays out over time, okay? So now I want to talk about Oren Klaff. I love Oren Klaff. He's an author, he's an incredible salesperson and an incredible teacher. He wrote this book called Pitch Anything. Pitch Anything is phenomenal. I highly recommend that you go ahead and pick it up. It'll teach you how to, as the title suggests, pitch anything. But why do I bring Pitch Anything up in this conversation? What is so important about Pitch Anything, right? So in Pitch Anything, Oren talks about frames in the lens of a business interaction. Okay, so he brings up six different frames that occur: the prize frame, the time frame, the power frame, the analyst, the neediness, the moral authority. And I'll briefly describe some of these just to give you a better understanding how frames can manifest in different social situations. So let's say you're in a business meeting. Let's say you're trying to pitch a VC, a venture capitalist, for your next big idea. Let's say you're in Shark Tank, right? The worst thing is to appear as needy. The second you appear as needy, people tighten up, they get afraid, they actually don't want to do the deal with you because you're afraid, you're needy, and it's weird. So kill the neediness frame. That's one frame that you don't want to be a part of. You don't want to have. Kill the neediness. Okay, the next thing is the prize frame. Be the prize. Remember, when you walk into any business interaction, when you're pitching VCs, when you've got customers, you got to understand that you are the person who has the most value in that setting. You got to remember that money is a commodity. I don't care how much money you have in your pocket right now. You can have $1 million. I don't care, because money is whatever. It shape shifts. Sometimes it's a Bitcoin, and sometimes it's a dollar. Sometimes it's a piece of gold. Whatever. It's malleable, it's flexible, whatever. But there's only one of me, right? So I've got the upper hand in this conversation. I am the prize. And when you come into a situation with the frame set that you are the prize, then people have to either accept it or reject it. But if you truly are the prize, people will probably accept it. But they're looking for more cues. They're looking for more clues as well. And so you want to also understand that not only are you the prize, but you're also the one that's guiding the flow of time. That time is important, and you're the one leading the discussion, okay? The power frame is really important as well. So not only are you the prize, but do you have power? Do you have true power in this situation, or are you powerless, right? Are you someone who has high status? With high status comes power. Are you a celebrity figure? Are you a celebrity authority figure? That's incredibly important, right? And so when you have celebrity authority, then you've got a frame that's almost like indestructible, really. Then the analyst frame is, these are things that people throw at you. Like, they try to bring you down to size. They try to cut you down to size, right? So you're given this awesome presentation, and the energy's flowing, and the sparks are flying high. And then this guy in the audience, this girl in the audience is like, wait a minute, I have a question. Can I see your pro forma? What are your financial projections like? Oh, okay. Have you really tested this? Like, they're going to try to ask you questions that are going to try to analyze you and try to break you down. So I want you to understand that when you enter a situation, there are many times in which one power figure and another power figure, when they meet, one tries to demolish the other. They try to bring the other person down to size. And guess what? This happens within seconds. And if you're not prepared, if you're not aware, you're going to be the victim in this social exchange, okay? And so the moral authority frame is someone who's like holier than thou. Holier than that, okay? Now, you can be like a fake moral authority figure. You can be sanctimonious, right? Or you can genuinely care about people and give a damn about them. And as long as you walk your walk and talk your talk, and you do all that stuff, and you are truly a person that's a humanitarian and cares about himself and the world, then you can guide people down that route. Listen, here's an example. I will not do business with you. I will not accept your investment unless you can guarantee that after you invest into my product, you're also going to take some of your money and then give it to like donations, or donate it to the charity fund or whatever. Because I refuse to work with people who are not charitable or whatever. Like, that's one example of the moral authority figure. I'm going to get a little bit deeper into it in the next few seconds and minutes, whatever. But I just kind of want to let you know that there are different frames present in every single situation. And also, just so you know, that in Oren Klaff's book, these are specific to investment and pitching a product. I'm not saying that you got to take the power frame and take it out into an external environment where it doesn't make sense, though. Power tends to do well no matter where you go, right? But it's just an example, okay? Now, I want you to know that the strong frame does absorb the weaker frame in a social interaction. Think about it. You're this big, strong frame, and you come across someone who's got this weaky little squeaky frame. You can actually absorb it and bring that into your own world, because you're the leader in that conversation. You can destroy it, boom, or you can inspire that frame. You can say, hey, little weak frame, you, and don't say that. Don't be condescending, please don't. But hey, little weak frame, I can help you. I can be your hero, baby. You can actually bring that person up, and you can lead and inspire them, and that can be pretty transformational, okay? Weak frames, remember this. Weak frames want to become strong frames. They want nothing more than to just grow up and become that little, Charmander becomes the Charmeleon and the Charizard. Pokemon reference, Charizard, sorry. So now let's talk about like different types of frames, right? If you really want an example of a very powerful frame, one of the most powerful in the world, probably across the board, is the doctor frame. I don't care if you're the president of the United States, if you're the king, if you're the queen, it doesn't matter. When you're face to face with a doctor, if the doctor tells you to drop your pants, you drop your pants. So the doctor frame is incredibly powerful. I've got a good friend of mine named Darsh, who and I once spoke with him, and I think I can say this now because he's already gotten residency, he's gotten a job, and he is a doctor in training, but he's a medical doctor, right? Or a doctor of osteopathic medicine, but nonetheless, he is a doctor, so I can say this now. He told me that one of the things that appealed to him about becoming a doctor is the fact that status does come with it. And you know, I don't blame him for saying that. I actually love that he does say that, because like, he does have authority. He goes on Instagram, he goes on Instagram Live, and he's answering people's questions, and people are asking him questions because he is the doctor, and it's cool, right? The doctor, that frame does come with authority, right? Well, this is kind of Madonna-esque, right? Okay, so if you're watching the video, you'll catch my quirks, okay? So, all right. Now, remember this also, that a frame is a promise, okay? A frame, the reason why it's so important is that a frame isn't just something that you just wear going into a social situation. It is your promise. And the one thing I want to let you know is that even though it's a promise you have to hold, it doesn't mean that just because you have this frame that it's not insurmountable either. You can still stick to your frame and be who you are. But remember, even if a doctor who has an absolute frame of reference, if he comes face to face with someone like Mother Teresa, who's a moral authority figure, Mother Teresa's frame is going to outshine that doctor's. I mean, like, you put a doctor up against, like, I don't know, Gandhi or Martin Luther King. I mean, there's no comparison, right? Having said that, you still got to stick to your frame and still be who you are. So this is interesting, right? So what do? I mean, you come across someone who has a more dominant frame than you, but then you don't want that person to collapse your frame. But then you feel like, well, if I don't level up, then they're definitely going to crush my frame. But what's the cost of leveling up without honesty, without integrity? Well, now you're just a fake, right? Your frame is your promise. So stick to who you are, right? Here's a perfect analogy. Let's say you're at the gym and you're lifting weights and you're like getting that pump in, right? And you're lifting your weight, and suddenly someone right next to you is lifting like twice the amount of weight. Now you feel inferior. So what do? Do you just pack on more weight? No, because you're a jackass if you do. Because if you do that, then your whole form is out of whack. Your spine's out of adjustment. You're gonna hurt yourself. You're gonna sprain yourself. Then you're out of the gym for like 2 months. It's not worth it. Just stick to who you are. Know who you are. Know that you can always level up, but level up in a method, in a way that is methodical, right? That just makes sense. That's structured. Anyway. A frame is a promise, okay? Now, I also mentioned one more thing. So never change your frame unless you are in danger, okay? Or you really know what you're talking about. So in the case of leveling up, sure, that's one thing. Like I said, don't just pack on more weight just without thinking about it, without really being able to handle that excess weight. But what about just changing yourself, right? I'm going to give you some examples here, but what I'll say is this. Unless you're in absolute danger, don't change your frame. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a cop pulls you over and you know you're absolutely, you're a criminal. You've done some bad things in your life and you're actually in the middle of a crime right now. You're in the middle of a getaway. I'm not advocating violence. Oh my God, please, no. But what I'm saying is that if it puts you in some sort of danger, it's probably better not to tell the cop that you are a criminal. Probably not. Now, I'm not a cop, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, so just take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm just, in this hypothetical example, I would imagine it's probably not in your interest it's probably better to plead the fifth in that sense. You know what I mean? Plead the fifth. That's it. Just exercise that right. But in most other cases, like you don't want to change your frame, okay? Once a frame has been established, let it be. And I'm going to explain I'm going to now give you some situational examples about how this can backfire on you and how this could actually support you in the long run, okay? We cast an impression on everyone that we meet, so that's why frames are super powerful. Now, let's talk about the example that I really want to give you is reputation. Frames and reputation have a lot to do with each other. They're intimate, they go hand in hand, boom. They're one, and they're like the two sides of the same coin. So let's take a look at a saint. When I say saint, what do you think? Cool, right? Now, when I say sinner, what do you think? It's a different energy, right? Saints and sinners. Obviously, the frame of a saint is holy. There's that moral authority. Then you've got the criminal, the sinner. You've got like this nasty vibe, if you will, the degenerate. Like it just doesn't feel good. Okay, so, but what I want to illustrate to you is The reason why you don't want to change your frame, if it doesn't put you in danger, the reason why you want to be cognizant and mindful of your frame, the reason why it's so important to be true to your frame and uphold that is because it can take years to build your frame up to the point where you have a reputation. And as you know, it takes, the saying is something to the effect of, it takes years to build a reputation, but only seconds to shatter it. And you have examples. Let's just say, I like to look at mythology and religion as sometimes as reference points for my examples. So you take a look at mythology, Latin, you have Lucifer. In Latin, Lucifer means bringer of light. Lucifer was attributed to Venus. And I mean, just in a very normal sense, it seems to be a very good and like graceful figure. But then when you look at the Bible, Lucifer is also one of the greatest, I think, angels, and he was the bringer of light as well, and he fell from the heavens because he did something bad, and now he's the devil, okay? So he has the scorn of God. If you take a look at the Quran, there's Iblis who was like a jinn, and he was one of God's greatest followers, and then he decided not to bow before Adam, and then he got sentenced to becoming really just Satan, Shaitan, the devil. And so what I mean is that when you look all throughout history, what happens when someone falls from grace? It's a terrible thing, and you can never build your reputation back up. But that's what a frame is. The more powerful the frame is, the greater the downfall. And that's why you want to make sure that you uphold that framer and you're honest and you have integrity and that you realize that your frame does imprint other people around you, okay? And so what I want to give you is just like some examples of frames. I wrote a few down in my journal here. Let me just kind of pick some off. So some I've mentioned before, some I'm gonna, some new ones. But when I say these frames, I want you to just get a mental image of what they look like in your mind and think about how they affect your psychology, okay? So when I say rock star, what comes to mind? Okay. When I say Mother Teresa, what comes to mind? All right. I mentioned this before, but just now let it really sink in, because this is a guided exercise, and I'm leading you down I'm leading you down to a conclusion, if you will. So when I say doctor, what comes to mind? Okay. And what about criminal? Okay. So now I said rock star, Mother Teresa, doctor, criminal. What about Larry Nassar? Do you know who I'm talking about? A doctor who became a serial rapist and is now confined to prison for the rest of his life, and rightfully so. This is the reason why frames are so important, because once you have a frame and you step away from it, you just run from it, and you do things, you commit nefarious acts and heinous acts of crime, and you hurt other people, then it brings you, and not only does it hurt other people, but your reputation is destroyed. You're donezo. And so I gave you these examples: the rock star, the doctor, Mother Teresa, the criminal, Larry Nassar. And then I want to give you another historical example. So in the 1960s, there was this brilliant mathematician. He was a young man who graduated from the University of Michigan. His neighbors said that he had the greatest brain that she'd ever experienced. Like, this guy, he outshined his contemporaries, his peers. There were no rivals. Like, he was in a league of his own. He was creating new mathematical theorems and papers and everything. As a matter of fact, in 1967, at the young age of 25, just 25 years of age, he became the youngest assistant professor of mathematics in UC Berkeley. Yeah, that was actually a historical attempt, or a historical feat, because that had never been done before at that time. This guy's name was Theodore Ted Kaczynski, who also ended up becoming a serial killer. He killed 3 people, injured 23 in a series of mailings. He became known as the Unabomber, and now he's in prison for life. So it just goes to show that Your frame is so important, and you need to uphold it, and you need to be your true self, and you can't shy away from that, okay? When you take a look at figures like Larry Nassar, when you take a look at figures like Ted Kaczynski, Lucifer, if you want to deal with like anecdotes and whatnot, but when you take a look at figures throughout history who seem to present themselves in one way, but ended up becoming someone totally different, what that was it was, as Jung would say, Carl Jung, it was an expression of the shadow repressed. And when that shadow, and the shadow is not a negative thing, it's not a positive thing, it's just an unknown, it's the hidden aspect of yourself. And when that part of yourself goes ignored and just untouched for the longest time, sometimes, as in the case of Ted Bundy or Kaczynski, or you take a look at Larry Nassar, it ends to express itself in violent ways, in ways that contradict the frame that you present to the world around you. And that's when things get really hectic. So, and this is outside of the scope of this video. I can't tell you how to level up in such a way to explore your inner self, but what I will say is this: get in touch with who you are at the core, and know who your demons are, know where they lie. Because if you don't pay attention to that side of yourself, then in unknown ways, in unexpected ways, the part of yourself that you try to hide and repress from the world is going to find ways to show itself. Just like it did in Daredevil. Oh my God. You got to watch that show on Netflix. Incredible. Okay? And so you can have multiple frames, right? I'm not saying that there's only one frame. I mentioned earlier that there are multiple frames that we have. In different social situations, you can present different sides of yourself. I'm not saying that you're changing who you are, but the best example I can give you is, let's just take a salesperson, okay? Now, this salesperson, by profession, by trade, happens to have a husband. She has kids. She has cousins. She has a mother, a father. She has sisters, aunts, nephews, all that stuff. Okay? But she also has customers. Right. Now, to her husband, she is a wife. To her kids, she is a mother. To her cousins, she's a cousin. To her siblings, she's a sister. To her parents, she's a daughter. And so these are different frames that she has to exhibit throughout her life. It would be weird for her to treat her kids like she would treat her best friends or her parents. Like, think about it. Like, imagine if you had a kid and you treated your kid like that was your mother, that was your father. It's very weird, right? But we tend to do this stuff. We tend to mix our frames up because we're not confident in them. But look at it this way. You have a different frame depending on who you're interacting with, and very important to know, okay? Depending on who you're interacting with, there are different frames that you can exhibit. Just be mindful of that, okay? So just like I said, the mother with the husband and the kids and all that. Now, to the customers, this figure does need to express a different side of herself. She needs to be the sales professional, okay? Now, I'll give you an example, right? What if this sales professional, who is a sales professional and she has customers, ends up becoming real buddy-buddy with these customers, and she starts inviting them out for lunch, and then they start going to the movies and things of that nature. Now she's showing a different frame. She's no longer being true to the salesperson side of herself, and now she has to, I don't know, maybe not give discounts. Maybe she just loses the customers. Maybe she's made friends, but she's no longer making sales anymore, right? So you got to really be cognizant and mindful of what your frame is. Very important. And you got to also understand in different situations, you will have different frames. You can have multiple frames. You can stack frames. So it's just as in the case of Oren Klaff's model earlier, you can be like, you can have the power frame in 1 second, and you can show them the moral authority frame. You can show them, what else is there? The prize frame. You can stack these frames. So if you're a salesperson, you can show yourself as the prize, as the moral authority. You can say, well, look, I've got the best product in the world. By the way, as far as moral authority goes, and you don't say moral authority, this product also, not only do I have the best product, but also impacts the world in a better way. So anyone who does deal with me helps contribute to making that world a better place through whatever, we plant trees and whatever. So you can stack frames, right? You can stack them on top of one another, but you don't just dissolve a frame. You don't just become one frame in 1 second and then another frame the other second. Frames are situational, okay? So what I mean by that is that, let's just say, I'll give you an example. Let's just say you have an employee, you're the manager, you've got an employee, the employee looks up to you for guidance. Outside of work, you can be best friends, that's fine. Inside of work, you got to play according to the social rules and the social hierarchies. As long as you can separate that work life and the external life balance, like work and life balance, whatever, then okay, but it's still pretty hard. Learn to master one frame before you start to incorporate let me go back. When you deal with one person, be that frame. Learn to master it, and then once you've set the standard, then you can go outside of work and have a different frame with that person. I guess an example would be if, let's just say, a husband and a wife were in a business together and the wife was the boss and the husband was the employee. The wife treats the boss like an employee at work, but outside of work, they're on the same level because they're husband and wife. Weird example, but it happens, right? So, next thing is, it is difficult to reframe yourself once you've established a frame. So once you present yourself in one way, you can't just go back and say, oh, well, the way I presented myself was that, but I'm actually this. Very hard. I'll give you a real life example, okay? So let's look at some dynamics, right? The friend versus the lover is one of them. So if there's a guy who likes a girl and he doesn't tell her that he likes her, and he makes up this thing inside of his mind where someday he's gonna approach her and ask her out, but all along the way he just becomes friends with her and he compliments her and all that stuff, and he just never ever lets her know that, hey, here's my frame, this is where I stand, I like you, I want to take you out, whatever. He doesn't give her at least the decency to let her know what his intent is. So she can never respond because she doesn't know what his intent is. So along the way, a couple months, days, whatever, weeks pass, and they become really good friends. And at that point, he's like, oh, by the way, I like you. Well, usually by that point, it's too late. She's already accepted that this guy is her friend, and it's really hard to backtrack out of that. It's hard to take that friend frame and reframe it as someone that she could establish a life with or a relationship with and whatnot. And now the guy has to either accept the fact that, all right, this is what it is, or he might have to move on, and maybe that's going to be the end of the friendship. It sucks, but it's really hard to reframe yourself. I'm not saying it's impossible, but just why would you misrepresent yourself in the first place? Why not just be honest, right? Now, here's another example. Let's just say the workplace scenario. If a boss goes ahead and he goes on a hiring spree and he interviews a bunch of people, and one of the candidates is really, really qualified, but also happens to be a woman that he's attracted to, and so he hires her based on her merit, on her work ethic, and all of that. But later on, he invites her to his house for coffee and whatever, and then he tries to ask her out. That's a big no-no. It's a big no-no because that situation is almost inescapable. This girl's probably married, she probably has a boyfriend or whatever. They're looking to this job for income, and now she's in this weird work environment where she knows that the boss is hitting on her, and it creates this really bad environment. You can't escape from that. So realize that your power at that moment, you're basically just throwing it out the window. You have all this authority, and this one girl that you approached who happens to be your employee, and you shouldn't be approaching her, you shouldn't be doing it. She's looking up to you for guidance and for advancement, and you're just asking her out. It really ruffles the feathers in a very negative way. You don't want to do that. So be mindful that in different situations, not only is it bad to try to reframe yourself, it's also dangerous. Don't be the boss who tries to reframe himself as the potential partner for this person. Really, really bad. Keep work and personal life in that case completely separate. I can only give you so many examples. I can't cover everything, but I just want you to know that if there's anything you take away from this video is that frames are really that powerful, and you got to be mindful of them, okay? And so, like I mentioned, friends can be situational and stuff like that, but most importantly, just be honest with yourself. Be honest with who you are and how you present yourself to be. If you're confused about something, just say it. Just let people know that you're confused. If you like someone, you don't have to just go out there and splurge and be like, oh, I just love you. No, just let it, in whatever way you can finesse it, let it be somewhat clear at least. If you're not completely clear, let it be somewhat clear that you have some sort of interest. Don't just completely shy away from the matter entirely. You can always grow your frame once you've established some sense of it, but at least let it go in the right direction, okay? Let it be known. Don't just hide the fact. If you're here for an investment, let it at least be known that, all right, this is a business conversation. I'm framing this up as a job interview. That's what this is. I'm framing this up as a friendship. I want to be your friend. I'm framing this up as a potential relationship prospect. I'm framing this up as a fitness training session. Own your frame. All right, if you love this video, please give it a like, share it, comment, subscribe. You know what to do. UnfoldingDestiny.com. Thank you. Over and out.